We're going to go right to Michigan with Harry calling up with a question about a diagnosis of total adrenal failure. Hey, Harry, thanks for the call. You are live.
Well, absolutely. Good afternoon to you, Dr. Clinton.
Yeah, good afternoon to you too, Harry. Thanks for calling. How can I help?
Well, sir, I would just like to preface my statement that there was a time about a year ago that for a period of about, 7 to 9 years, I never took an accurate measurement, but I was drinking for a while to where I was doing about 6 to 9 shots a night on average, okay, of alcohol.
Yeah.
And so I realized I was abusive on my body. So some of the stuff that was brought on, I understand. It was due to my own making. I truly understand that. However, I quit entirely a year ago. And I started trying to do healthier things, and including I just bought a couple boxes of longevity. However, about 5 weeks ago, I experienced some symptoms which led to their final diagnosis. It took about 5 weeks for them to diagnose it, and they're saying that my 2 adrenals on the kidneys at this point are producing 0 cortisol, and they're saying that, they put me on a 40 milligram dose of hydro-cortisone cortisol for life.
This is an integrative MD you went to, I'm assuming, correct?
Integrative, if you mean an established hospital, regular endocrinologist, most likely.
Yeah, okay. I got to tell you something, Harry. It's rare for an endocrinologist to even be able to belly on up to the bar of the diagnosis of adrenal fatigue. There's a growing number of MDs who, seeing the futility of their current treatment approach, are getting trained, quote unquote, in this integrative medical model where, you know, they're already an MD and they do some continuing education credit in vitamins and minerals and this, that, and the other thing, and then they start to apply watered-down holistic therapeutics. So it doesn't really matter, but I was just curious for my own edification. But, okay, so in any event, you've been given the diagnosis of adrenal fatigue, and they put you on hydro-cortisone for the rest of your life. How's that working out for you?
Adrenal failure.
Yeah, okay. So how's that working out for you?
Well, this is day number 4. I'm still recovering. I'm hoping to go back to work, but how's it working? Quite frankly, you're kind of like I'm looking for hope in a kind of a desperate situation. I don't want to be stuck on this forever, but if I have to, the choice is living or dying.
Well, no, I get it, and we're with you 100% because, you know, we're both myself, members of my profession, and the MDs are all swimming in the ocean of science, right? So we're all swimming in the world of reality. It's just our perspective on how to swim through those waters is quite a bit different than my anti-colleagues, the MDs. So let me give you my perspective on this, okay? So first of all, life is a great big bowl filled with stress, man, and it really is. There's all kinds of stress: psychological stress, emotional stress, environmental stress. Life is even just growing older, going outside in cold weather. These are all stressors of life. And chronic consumption of too much alcohol is another stress, as is chronic consumption of wheat, barley, rye, and oats and fried food. That's a big stress on the body, as is not having enough salt in your body. These are all negative stressors. So I wouldn't beat yourself up too much thinking that, you've ruined your body because you were overdoing it with alcohol for so many years, because from our point of view, the majority of addictions, whether it's an alcohol addiction, a tobacco addiction, a prescription drug addiction, like oxycodone, or street drug addiction, any type of addiction, from our point of view, the majority have their roots not in psychology and not in weak will and not because you fell in with the wrong crowd, but because your body is lacking specific nutrients. And when your body or my body or anybody's body lacks specific nutrients, we start craving things. right? So depending on the circumstances of our lives, if we start to crave alcohol, well, that's one thing. If we start to crave tobacco, well, that's another thing. If we start to crave cocaine, well, that's another thing. Really, the stuff that we lean on really has more to do with socialization and what's going on in our, world, our cultural world, more than it does with, anything else. But from our point of view, people start to crave and overdo it with stuff, controlled or uncontrolled substances, not because they have a weak will, not because they have a self-destructive tendency, but because they have the wrong doctor. Most of the time, the root cause, from our point of view, of any type of a craving is physiological, not psychological. So I am assuming that because you were overdoing it with alcohol, your body was extremely nutritionally deficient, especially deficient in minerals, right? So there's 90 essential nutrients. We got vitamins, we got minerals, we got essential fatty acids, and we have amino acids, and they all do different things. Generally, when people develop addictive behaviors, it's a mineral deficiency, not a vitamin deficiency or an essential fatty acid deficiency, a mineral deficiency that's the driving engine here, all right? Now, I got to ask you a question. Since you've stopped drinking alcohol, have you become addicted to caffeine or to sugar? Are you, craving sugar like crazy or really overdoing it with caffeine?
Actually, I was doing coffee for a while, but quite frankly, I cut way back on everything. There was a sincere effort to get healthier. So I cut back on coffee. That meant 2 or 3 cups a day from 6 or 7. And as far as the sugars, that was never a major craving. But, yeah, I'd have a piece of cake every other day or so, It depends. Yeah. But there wasn't an overriding craving.
Okay, and how's your sleep at night, Harry? Is it easy to fall asleep or hard to fall asleep? And do you sleep through the night or do you wake up a lot?
Prior to last night, when I had these surges from what I consider the cortisol, these little surges, I have slept terrible in the last year.
Okay, so was it hard to fall or hard to stay asleep?
It was hard to stay asleep.
Okay, and do you find yourself getting sleepy during the daytime, like after you'd eat a meal?
I would be yawning all the time.
Yeah, okay. And would you, need to take a siesta, after lunch? It got really bad, or didn't you notice that?
It wasn't quite to the siesta point, but in fact, I would take a quick, 15-minute nap or 20-minute nap right after lunch.
Yeah, okay. So those two symptoms, combined with the history of alcohol abuse, point to something called metabolic syndrome. Or pre-type 2 diabetes. It's also referred to as Syndrome X, and it's intimately related, quite frankly, with your body's metabolism and production of cortisone and cortisol, and, adrenal hormones, adrenal stress hormones. So what happens is, because of pre-existing nutrient deficiencies, which were caused by the food that you were eating and lack of proper guidance by your healthcare professionals, your body slowly over the years was losing more and more and more and more and more and more minerals until things got so bad that you got uncontrollable cravings for alcohol. But the alcohol doesn't have minerals in it, so the more alcohol you drink and the longer your life goes, the less and less your mineral content gets. And now that you've stopped drinking alcohol, the deficiencies exist and they persist. And what is they're driving now, instead of the addictive behavior, which, by the way, good job for, gearing up your willpower against that, but the nutrient deficiencies that you've been unconsciously suffering from are now driving an inability of your body to metabolize sugar. And sugar is the gasoline of your body. So when your body can't metabolize sugar properly, it's kind of like the fuel line between the engine and the gas tank. There's a filter in there, and it gets clogged. And so even though there might be enough gas in the tank, it can't get to the engine the way that nature intended it to. So you get this just all over the place, crazy experience of your body's energy. We're talking to Harry from Michigan, who's been given a diagnosis of adrenal failure. He reports a history of chronic alcoholism that he's gotten on the other side of now. But since, in the last couple of years, his energy's in the crapper and the MDs have put him on highfalutin hydro-cortisone, they told him he's going to need to be on it for life, and he wants to see if there's a way that he can support and promote the function of his endocrine system and also his ability to metabolize blood sugar, because that game is afoot. All right, so Harry, here's the deal. So the adrenal gland, there was a guy named Hans Selye, S-E-L-Y-E. I think he was Swiss. But he was a researcher years ago. And he did work with laboratory rats, and it was Selye that actually coined the terms distress, stress, and eustress. Distress, stress, and eustress. And what he did was he subjected rats to all kinds of stress, like electrical shocks and food deprivation and heat and cold stuff, right? And then he would kill them and autopsy them at different stages of the stress. And one thing that he found was that the more and more stress they were exposed to, the smaller and smaller and smaller their adrenal glands got. Now, this, of course, led to the whole, one of the fundamental relationships between the environment that we live in and the stress of life and actual physiological change. Right before Hans Selye came along, medical personnel didn't think that psychological stress could alter the way that your organs work, right? Well, it can. But what Hans Selye overlooked, which is what your MDs overlooked, is the fact that the rats that he was stressing out were not nutrified properly. Right now, if you go outside in Michigan in January and it's 5 degrees below zero and snowing like a son of a gun, and you try to shovel your walk, but you do that in your bathing suit, well, guess what? The stress of the cold weather is going to hurt you. It could even kill you. But if you bundle up, you can, sleep in the snow if you want, if you're properly protected. So you can guard yourself against the stress of life. And it is my contention that if Hans Selye's rats were properly nutrified, their organs would not have failed after being exposed to stress. Now, there is too much stress, of course, it's going to break anything. I mean, there is too much stress that will break anything. But God only knows where that point is. And so our position here, regardless of what's going on in the body now, is give your body all of the nutrients that it needs to function properly. Give it, in your case, extra stuff to help it metabolize blood sugar and extra stuff to support and promote the structure and function of the endocrine system, and get the heck out of the way and see what happens. And, this will be a relatively easy thing to track, because as our program rolls forward, if it works, if it provides beneficial, if your body is still in, recovery zone, not in the land of, everything's gone beyond recovery, and I doubt very much that that's the case, then you will start to see specific and measurable and noticeable improvement over time that will then be backed up by blood work, right? So this is a very pragmatic approach, and I would not fear that all is lost, because the body has a remarkable ability to fix itself. All right, so here's what you got to do, Harry. The first thing, you got to stop eating all 10 bad foods. So go to my website, drglidden.com or fireyourmdnow.com. Sign up for my free newsletter. It's right there on the front page. And as soon as you sign up for the free newsletter, you will be directed to a page that has my list of good food and bad food. I want you to start to emphasize the good food, and I want you to eliminate the 10 bad foods 100%. Eliminate the 10 bad foods 100%. I want you to start eating food that's rich in cholesterol. I mean, man, I want you to eat 6 eggs a day. I want you to use butter. I want you to use salt. I want you to use full-fat milk, full-fat dairy. Chicken with the skin. Throw the chicken away, eat the chicken skin. I want you to overdo it with cholesterol. Why? Because your adrenal hormones are made from cholesterol. That's what they're made from. For heaven's sake, if you're taking a cholesterol-lowering statin drug, you want to really consider the wisdom of that, and I would never take a cholesterol-lowering statin drug. To round it all off, it's 1 healthy blood sugar pack per 100 pounds of body weight per month, 1 bottle of selenium per 50 pounds of body weight per month, 1 bottle of HGH Youth Complex per 100 pounds of body weight per month, and I would do some Smart FX, 2 bottles a month. That's the Healthy Blood Sugar Pack, the Smart FX, the HGH. Check it out.